Will Donald Trump's executive order attempting to deny pay for play actually work out in the court of law?
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. New FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if they win their first bet. Today's show is all about whether or not Donald Trump's recent executive order that attempts to deny pay for play in college athletic, does it hold any water in the court of law? What do you think? I'm going to give my personal take, going to give a little bit of feedback from several individuals that I've communicated with, and then just kind of look at it from how I think this will play out. And then we will also discuss a few recent commitments and one important commitment this weekend that I know of. So let's start off with the executive order from Donald Trump. This is the cliff notes here, but basically any player that gets a payment from an outside entity, quote unquote, an NIL collective, it can't just be, we're giving this kid $750,000 to go to our favorite school. There has to be a reasonable, in their determination, justification for that money. In other words, you can't just show up for an hour and sign a handful of autographs and get $750,000. So that's basically, this is where it gets very touchy. That's basically saying we're going to determine your name, image, and likeness. They're going to, quote unquote, be able to deny deals. How they're going to enforce that, I'm going to say that about 10 times during this pod. I have no idea, because they're just going to pay the kids under the table. You're not going to put the genie back in the bottle. I'm going to say that about 10 times too. But here's the legal aspect of it that I want to dive into. With teenagers, that especially some of them that come from smaller towns, et cetera, that are getting ready to go to a big school. I'll just use one really easy example. The University of Tennessee, massive football program. They've got crazy fans. It only takes one person to say that kid from that 1A school somewhere in Georgia, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, wherever, I don't care if he hadn't had much exposure, I'm going to give him $100,000 for 1 hour to do whatever at my business. I'm the CEO. I'm the founder. How do you tell people they can't do that? Telling private businesses that, I have a hard time seeing that working out in the court of law, because an executive order is just the beginning part. It's got to be passed by Congress, et cetera. There are certain things they can, at least to my understanding, and if anybody wants to comment, please fire away down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but there's a lot of different political fodder for this. And it's just like any other executive order. It still has to stand the test of time all the way up to the Supreme Court, depending on how far it goes. And believe me, there will be several people that say, A, you can't tell a young man what his political value is or a sports value or anything else based on name, image, and likeness if somebody's going to go above that and you don't agree with it. This, the business owner at a car dealership, restaurant, whatever, it doesn't matter. If they want to pay, how does that work? So we're right back, in my opinion, to square one. And I don't think that the executive order is going to hold a lot of water, but I do think this is going to be a slow grind, because A, you're going to have schools that just completely ignore this, especially some of the big box schools. I'll just use the same one that I just used a minute ago. The state of Tennessee, for those of you who don't remember or didn't know, put out a ruling before all this stuff with the House settlement came out on July 1st that said, we're not going to abide by other rules. We're going to abide by the state rules here in Tennessee. That's touchy within itself, because every state is different. That's why we have states. So you have different principles to live under all across the United States. And that makes it very, very difficult for one body, meaning the NCAA, the president, or anybody else at any time, to pass a rule that everybody's going to follow. I get it. But just beyond that name, image, and likeness part of it, you're also going to have these private businesses want to sue against this, and some agents. Like, there's different levels to this that I think are fascinating. How many will try to challenge Trump's executive order, you got me. If you want to comment on that, fire away down below. But like anything else, I understand that there's a lot of things, and his executive order is very big. I'm just taking out a slice of this, by the way. This isn't just one thing, but he's trying to help out some of the other sports. So if you pay a whole bunch of money to the main sports, other sports that are Title IX, like wrestling and women's athletics, they still get something, and that's good. There's no doubt that part of Trump's executive order is good, but you're still going to have a hard time, in my opinion, putting the genie back in the bottle and making this work. In extension of likely a whole bunch of lawsuits, I'm just going to make the obvious statement, just so nobody brings it up. Yes, if anybody is a part of a NIL collective or a private business that supports a certain school, and at least for the meantime, keywords, at least, that school and the AD say, we're just going to back off a little bit, there's just going to be the bagman scenario. And in some cases, even if the school doesn't, they don't want to be involved in this. They don't want any legal issues. They don't want to even be questioned. They're going to pay recruits illegally. There's no way, shape, or form that you're going to tell rich people to not spend their money on what they want. I have learned that throughout life, and that's not even something that has anything to do with sport, but it's going to play out in sport right here. So this idea that there's going to be a quote-unquote level playing field, 0% chance. College football has always been tilted towards about 15 to 20 schools, and they kind of rotate through on which ones are at the top, that top 5 to 10 programs based on who the head coach is and who their quarterback and coordinators are. That's not going to change because those programs and their boosters, the money they generate, it's a lot more than most. Penn State is different, no offense, than what's going on at a school like, let's say, Arizona. It's just different. Yeah, they're still both in the Power Four, but one is not like the other in how much money they generate for football. It's just the way it is. Now, last point. How long will this last? I have no idea. I had somebody ask me that, and I said, well, lawsuits could go on forever, and he could put out another executive order, etc. So there are a lot of things to look at, and it's just getting started as the NIL clearinghouse on August 1st, just as a date, still has to start receiving all these different NIL deals, supporting them, not supporting them. So we could technically see the start of the lawsuits in August, technically, as soon as somebody's deal gets reneged. That's going to happen. The question again, though, will it be the collectives that sue? Will it be the recruits? Will it be agents? Will it be a combination? How quickly? All that stuff, it just has to play out. And I'm fascinated by it. When we come back, we're going to talk about a few commitments. We're also going to talk about an impending commitment here on the Portal Podcast. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to get in on the games and make them more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more fun with FanDuel? You can get all the time you want at the game with your friends and have some more fun, but you can also do it with a little more action with FanDuel. For me, we're down the stretch in two things. Number one, we're getting close to fall camps for college football, NFL, and all that stuff. It's a blast. Over-unders are interesting to look at. Quarterback play, who's going to be MVP, all that stuff. And then with baseball, Triple Crown possibilities, how many home runs, who's going to be the AL home run leader, NL home run leader, etc. Those are fun as well. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to get all your latest recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. We're going to be discussing quarterbacks, Big Ten, and other conferences, teams, everything else as we go through fall camp. And I will have my poll probably just before the end of fall camp. I want to see who gets hurt before I release it because I know how that goes. But with that being stated, here are a few commitments that have happened here in the last day or so, just to get caught up with everything that's going on. Keyshawn Bowman, class of 2027 wide receiver recruit, has committed to the Oregon Ducks. Here's the interesting part. Not only is he class of 27, so he's only going to be a junior, he's from Brentwood Academy in Nashville, Tennessee. That is wild. He's a top 50 recruit by Rivals. He's a kid that is being recruited nationally, obviously if Oregon's recruiting him, but He's a speedy kid, 6'1", 160 pounds. He can really go. We talked about it yesterday. Teddy Gerard committed to Notre Dame, another class of 2027 recruit. For the Fighting Irish, he's going to be coming there from North Cobb High School in Kennesaw, Georgia, just north of Atlanta. He's one of the top prospects in that class. Another top 100 prospect. He's ranked number 52 overall by Rivals. And that was a big-time battle. Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Georgia, a lot of offers for Teddy Gerard. Really good prospect class of 2027. Tywin Matthews out of Lake Cormorant High School in Mississippi has committed to UNLV. That's pretty wild. Kid from Mississippi going out to Vegas. Cornerback, 5'10", 160 pounds. He will go be a UNLV Rebel. Christian Chancellor Jr., a corner from right around the corner from Clemson. D.W. Daniel High School in Central South Carolina. That's basically right there on the edge of the Clemson campus. He's going to Clemson. And then Braylon Rito out of Royal High School in Brookshire, Texas. He's 6'6", 250 pounds, offensive tackle. UTSA, the Roadrunners, get him. Also, Deron Parks will be making a decision this weekend. He's an offensive lineman that plays at Cardinal Mooney High School in Sarasota, Florida. Ohio State's still involved. Auburn and Florida State are thought to be the leaders. I've heard varying reports, but the most latest chatter is favoring Florida State. I had previously heard Auburn. We'll see where he goes. He's going to be announcing at some point on Saturday. Deron Parks is massive, 6'4", 6'5", 340 pounds. That's a young man that can still play tackle, in my opinion. I saw him at Under Armour down in Orlando. Really athletic, got good feet, and very competitive. Off the field, great guy. So either Ohio State, Florida State, or Auburn is going to get Parks. We'll find out tomorrow, and he's a very good prospect. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Please like, please subscribe, and please share this podcast and comment. If you have something you want to hear about, let's hear what that is. We will talk to you soon, again, here on the Portal Podcast.